You're listening to The Monetized Mom, the podcast that teaches moms of faith how to monetize their expertise online to create influence, impact, income, and more importantly, financial independence. I'm your host, Flo Alexander. Let's chat. Hey mama, if you are tuned into this episode, you're probably looking to grow your coaching business. Well, you are in luck. I just released a new training on how to launch a high-ticket program that clients will pay thousands for, even if you don't have your program created. Now, you can access it now at themonetizedmom.com/training. That's themonetizedmom.com/training. Again, that's themonetizedmom.com/training. Now, let's get on with the show. All right. So today we're going to be talking about pivoting and the fact that pivoting isn't failure, but it is progress. And this is one of the few occasions where I'm going to be giving you guys a real-time revelation as it's being downloaded to me pertaining to my own situation. So I'll give you guys a little backstory. Today was one of those days where I just felt like my relationship with my business is toxic. Like, it's one of those situations where I'm like, I can't stand you, but also I'm not going to leave you. I'm going to stick beside you. Like, I'm going to keep pushing through because business really is all about pivoting, adjusting, and figuring things out. And today was one of those tough days where, the realization set like, man, stuff is not moving the way that I want it to move. And I'll just be transparent because I feel like there needs to be transparency in order for you to feel like it's not just you and you're not just going through it. But you guys know I have Mama and Money, which is a financial education platform. And a lot of that income, revenue, growth is driven by the website, the blog itself. Obviously, I have social media. I have YouTube channel, which is growing. I'm grateful for that. But the bulk of it is the blog. And a lot of my traffic comes from search engine optimization, meaning my articles are ranking in the top of Google searches. And so when people are searching for things, they're able to find my website. So that's just the short of it, right? Well, as always, Google does an update, which really shakes things up for the people who are in the SEO space, because websites who were once ranking at the top are now being pushed down. They're prioritizing different types of websites. It's a whole lot of changes. And although I prefer Google over social media any day, it is just what it is. Like, if you don't own the platform, you're at will to whatever they decide to do. And so that was the case today, or more recently, where there were updates. And so I saw a pretty substantial loss in my traffic, which translates ultimately to a loss in income in some ways. And so anyway, it's very tough because, what can you do, right? So there goes that toxic relationships. Like, what can I do besides like figure things out and pivot? And so anyway, I'm in some Facebook groups and in some communities with other bloggers. Literally everyone else is freaking out. I've been pretty calm about it. But today was one of those frustrating days where I was just like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do? I don't know. Like, I'm doing my best. I'm giving the best information. Obviously, Google at some point thought it was the best information because it was ranking number one and in the top. And then suddenly it's like, oh, we changed our mind. So it can be very frustrating, to say the least. But nonetheless, I sent an email out to one of the group admins for one of the Facebook groups I'm in. I'm like, hey, look, I was doing well. I just had made some major updates to my website and that dramatically increased traffic. And now you're telling me, traffic is decreasing. What should I do? Should I just pivot? And honestly, after saying that and asking that question, not necessarily for her answer, but for my own questioning and answer, I had a moment where I was just like, oh my gosh, I really have to pivot. And I sat here and I cried because I was grieving really the change that I have to make. I had this idea of what my business would look like, what the platform would be, and now suddenly I'm having to pivot if I want to stay around. And I think the requirement to pivot and really deviate from what your original plan was is a real thing that many entrepreneurs really don't talk about. And especially if you are an entrepreneur who's being led by God, like, you are seriously having to make pivots because you're doing whatever God tells you to do, and it doesn't look like everyone else. your story, your trajectory, your journey does not look like everyone else. And so yesterday I kind of had this revelation where it's like, well, if you want to have a business led by God, like you can't also want your business to look like other people. But nonetheless, I had to sit with it and be like, I'm going to have to change the focus of my content, which is mama and money. So I've been talking about motherhood and finances, but I'm really going to have to really niche down even more on what I'm talking about if I really want to see longevity in this space. And so that was kind of a tough pill to swallow because I'm like, I'm doing all the things right. I'm just the victim like everyone else to an update. Just like on social media, you can be doing all the things right and the algorithm just doesn't work in your favor. So that was a tough pill to swallow today. Among other things, like having to pivot in my business. So I told you guys in the last episode or a previous episode where, God told me to turn my ads off. We switched around what the coaching program is. It is now done with you. And so that also came with its own kind of grieving process because I had put so much into the way that things were going. I had put so much into ads, which they're still applicable now. Like, I'm not concerned necessarily about that, but I had put so much energy into growing a business that I thought was going to be this certain way, only for God to shake things up and say, no, you need to do it this way. You need to pivot, which I definitely think it will serve people a lot better. But just grieving that, hey, my business isn't going the way that I thought or that I had originally planned or how I see everyone else doing and also excelling in. So it's been an interesting few weeks of just a bunch of pivots and at sometimes honestly feeling like I have failed because my plan didn't go the way that I thought it would go. There's always been some kind of wrench thrown and I've had to navigate it. And this one was a big enough one for me to be like, okay, like before it was more like weathering storms. And this one is like, okay, you really have to make a hard pivot and figure out what direction you're going to go now if this thing is still going to be viable. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who is going through. I know that there are other people who are going through this. Maybe people who are not talking about it. Maybe you just aren't in this space, so this isn't necessarily a topic of conversation, but it happens in all aspects of business. And that's all I can say I can do at this point. Like, if you follow God, you really just got to be down and ready for whatever. And I feel like this is one of those moments where it's like, okay, you got to figure it out. You got to move, you got to pivot, you got to change, and you got to be flexible and willing enough to make those changes if you want your business to survive. And I think the businesses who survive are the ones who are like, okay, well, the model that we had worked while it worked. Now something else is, new, and we just got to figure out how to adapt to it. Or else you'll end up like Blockbuster, who's like, no, we're never going to change. And then you got a Netflix. And now Netflix is now having to figure out their direction now that other players are coming into the space. So it's always this constant evolving. And I just think I was not ready for it and having to face it and pivot and really be like, oh my goodness, am I going to have to go in a direction that I didn't want to go into? Obviously, still holding on to my integrity, holding on to the vision and the values that I have for the platform, but maybe looking at it in a new light. And it may be in the best interest of the people who support me. I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out. But yeah, it's been one of those days. And so this message is more for me than it probably is for you. But I think you'll find it useful that pivoting is not failure, pivoting is progress. And as entrepreneurs, as people in general, like we have to get accustomed to change and pivoting and not being so married to the process or the plan that we have and really being okay with having to take a new route with the same vision and the same goal in mind, like the same goal for me to serve people, to serve moms, to provide financial education. That's still going to be the vision, but maybe my way of doing it has to change, or it is not maybe, it will have to change, and it's going to look a little bit different from what I had planned on or what I had intended on. But if I want to continue serving these people, right, I have to make the change. So that's what I'm doing right now in real time. I literally sat here and wrote on the index card everything that I thought was going wrong right now. And today I wrote on the index card as I was crying. I was like, look, Lord, these are all the things that I think are going wrong. Obviously, there are things that are going right, but these are all the things that I think are going wrong. I don't know what to do. All I can do is just move forward. And that's what I decided to do. I shed some thug tears and I was like, you know what? The only way to make this work is to work it. And so that's what I started doing, and I started doing the work and hoping for the best. So that's what I can offer you today, guys. Like, pivoting isn't failure, it's only progress. And so if you find yourself in a season right now where you have to pivot, whether it's in your business, whether it's in your life, it's not a failure, it's progress. Keep the vision. Don't marry yourself to the plan or the idea that you have. And if you have to pivot, it's okay to grieve the fact that, hey, this vision that I had as far as how I was going to get there, it's lost. Is a new route. Hey, is a new road, new construction, old road is closed. It's going to be fine. It's going to be okay. So that's what I can offer. Maybe I'll come back with some more insight as to how things go, but that's what I want to offer you today. Pivoting is not failure, it is progress. And then, of course, guys, like I mentioned, we did do a pivot with the Monetized Mom with our coaching program. I'm super excited about it. We're now doing Done With You marketing and business strategy. And so if you are looking for someone to hold your hand, work with you one-to-one as you are building your brand and as you are monetizing your expertise, packaging and selling a high-ticket offer, then this is the place for you. You want to visit themonetizedmom.com. That's themonetizedmom.com to get more information on who we serve and how we can help you in your business. With that said, hopefully this podcast encouraged someone or at least made you feel like, hey, I'm not by myself. Because that's what I look forward to when I listen to podcasts. Like, hey, I'm not by myself. Someone else is going through this, or they've gone through this, and they're vulnerable enough to share their story. So hopefully you got something out of it. If you did, don't forget to give this a 5-star rating on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to it, and share it. All right, talk to you in the next episode. As always, I hope that you found this episode helpful. If you did, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. And with that, I'll talk to you in the next episode.